YouTube as we started in, as we usually crank our first broadcast up. Oh, Newswire on YouTube. Jesse, our engineer extraordinaire, will be cranking us up on Newswire Facebook Live as we usually go live at 5 on that. And then we'll roll into KMET 1490 at 5:30 to 6 like we do every Monday through Friday, each and every day, as we're broadcasting all across the nation and the world. As we fire all this stuff up. Here we are, we're firing up now. We're fired up on IE Newswire Live on Facebook as we just joined IE Newswire YouTube a couple of minutes ago. Getting everything fired up as we do every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on the old show, getting ready to talk about all the news and views and events and things that are happening. Fun, frivolous, maybe even something a little bit interesting as we come to you high above Moreno Valley here in the Toyota of San Bernardino recording studios. I'll get that out straight on that as we do each and every day. If you need a new Toyota, go by and see. Ask for Cliff Cummings. Well, I'd probably get myself into trouble. Ask for Cliff Cummings, the owner of the place. Maybe he'll give you an extra special deal if he's around on that. Just kidding on that. Any one of the fine salesmen there can help you out with the new Supra, Toyota Tundra truck, hybrid, Prius, or whatever trips your trigger over there. All the Toyotas are fine vehicles to get to have, own, and drive on that. Not to mention there's some really badass race cars that they got all up and down the line too that they have on the docket. A lot of things that are going on today, and we'll touch on that. You know, why I might vote Democrat. That ought to shock you a little bit, but I think you'll really enjoy that segment when we get to it on that. Really nice, funny thing came out on that. Taxes, pensions, contracts, money going short. A lot of things. I was down and I gave my 3-minute speech down at Riverside County at the Board of Supervisors during public comments on that. That's some interesting things happen in Moreno Valley Unified School District on that. Bonds coming up and some interesting concepts of talking about that. More aftermath. One thing I would say is on the deal of that, and see what the heck is really going on the situation on that. More news coming out on the Kobe deal. They're going to do the investigation of why, wherefore on that. Now it's just basically a wait and see on the whole deal. A lot of people are going to be doing a lot of speculating or asking or question of what's going on, and we'll figure that out. But one thing that happened, and I remember watching this because I watched the launch 33 years ago today. Challenger, 73 seconds up, exploded, and 7 of our astronauts lost their life on that. So I have the videotape ready of that here pretty soon. But I remember watching that, and I'm going, uh-oh, that doesn't look good when I saw the two split off. But you have that hesitation. Well, maybe it's something new coming on. And then you're seeing the kind of the smoke going up, and then you're seeing the pieces start going back down, and at that point I said, this does not look good, and that was one of the, it was very tragic to watch that day of doing that. So we have some videotape, a little bit of the launch coming up, and what's going on. For that, this is what happened 33 years ago today, as Challenger was making its liftoff. So when you got the videotape ready, go ahead and roll it, Jesse. There they are walking out onto the, shows the astronauts walking into the rocket that day for the fatal flight.
Ellison on Azuka, and payload specialist.
This on C-SPAN American History TV.
30 years ago, on January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after liftoff, taking the lives of the 7 crew members pictured here. Up next on American History TV's Real America, NASA's video of the shuttle launch, followed by President Reagan's remarks to the nation from the Oval Office about 5 hours after the accident.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Now control. Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program.
There it
confirmed.
goes. It's getting it's
Challenger
on
now
its
heading down
ascent,
range.
going up. You're seeing the film of it now. Those of you listening on the radio as you're coming up, and she's
Engine's beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65%.
there. It is going in. You're
shortly.
hearing him as he's coming.
Engines at 65%. 3 engines running normally. 3 good fuel cells. 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude
There
4.3
she's
nautical
going
miles.
up.
Downrange distance 3 nautical miles. Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
There she's throttling her up, and there she goes. Boom! Right there, she exploded
Minute
right
15
into
seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per
the
second.
deal,
Altitude
and
9
you're
nautical
seeing the
miles.
craft
Downrange
going on.
distance
So
7
go ahead
nautical
and that's the end of the video, or that's the explosion coming down. You're seeing it hit coming down. You're seeing part of the craft that is blown apart, heading back to the area. That happened 33 years ago today. Challenger exploding, and we lost 7 astronauts that day. One thing I wanted to explain about that, and there is no reward without any risk. Those 7 astronauts that walked on that plane knew that. They took that chance, and it's things like that. And I get the part of that you need to be, you need to be careful at times, but at times you need to take that risk. And we never move society. You'll never gain anything without taking a risk. And just because something happens sometimes doesn't mean you shouldn't take a risk or that. Now, you shouldn't take unnecessary risk or risks that are, that are overwhelmingly odds that will that you may do that. Like jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge or something, or jumping out of a plane with a parachute is not a good idea. That's the type of risk that you will not do that. But the explosion of that of Challenger that day, even though that was tragic for the loss of the 7 lives, we do not, is not to be minimized. But if we wouldn't push those envelopes and things, and we wouldn't do those things, we would never enjoy a lot of the modern conveniences that we have today, and society wouldn't move. And I see that a lot, and I think it's a winning strategy. And a lot of times, I think we don't come up with winning strategies of that. Or if you want to fail, just don't have a winning strategy. You got to have something, and sometimes pushing those limits means you exceed them, and every once in a while something tragic like this happens. But that doesn't mean we quit. We go crawl back in a corner. We figure out what went wrong. We get back into it, get back on the horse, and do that. And I think we have us joining us on Skype, our longtime caller that we have on. Dwayne, are you on the line?
I am. How you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. You probably didn't see it, but I played the videotape because 33 years ago today, the fatal flight of Challenger went up and only lasted 73 seconds before it exploded, killing 7 astronauts and stuff. But I kind of wanted to put the broader aspect of that, because I see a lot of times in our society or something, we're trying to take the risk out of everything, or we're trying to put, make everything, like I say, Ozzie and Harriet, nothing ever goes bad. We do that. And that's one of the things I would say is be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Because nothing is ever gained. Nothing that you gain, you have to take a risk somewhere to gain something.
Well, the old adage, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and the greater the risk, the greater the reward. I mean, the we put somebody on the moon because John F. Kennedy decided to do it in the 60s because he declared that that decade was going to be the decade of America landing a man on the moon. And we did it with slide rules, not computers. Every one of us has a cell phone that has probably 100 times more capability than the computers that they use to put a man on the moon. So these guys were hanging it out on the line to put a flag on a rock that orbits this planet. So I think that, we could, it's all in your perspective. What you want to achieve, what you're going to achieve. You can sit there and play safe and get hit by a lightning bolt watching TV in your house, or you can live life and you can venture out and do it with gusto. Some of us have done that. Some of us want to be couch potatoes. It's up to you to decide what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's up to you to live with the consequences of that. I mean, too much in society. I see that we're moving the wrong direction on this, or we think that well, things just rain out of the sky, or you don't have to do anything. Somebody else will provide something for you. Something is free. Everything is free. We're going to take it from somebody. Yada yada yada. Well, in order to provide that product for you, whether it's that food card or whatever you slide in that you're getting your groceries, or that check that's paying your house payment under a Section 8, or whatever, that homeless housing we're building at $600,000 a unit, or whatever ridiculous cost we're coming up with that. Somebody somewhere actually took a risk and made that capital to make that happen. And far too far, and what I don't see a lot is the people that are benefiting or getting those benefits don't have a lot of don't have a lot of appreciation for what they're getting, and they never or hardly ever do hear a thank you from them for the people that are providing the benefits to them. They're not free; they're benefits.
No, and it's because they have an entitlement mentality that they're owed or they deserve something at the behest of the government, i.e., you and I, the taxpayer. I do find it interesting. You said $600,000 a unit for homeless. Wouldn't it be cheaper to hand them a $100,000 check and tell them to relocate to another state?
Yes.
I'm just saying,
your problem is you learned how to do simple mathematical calculations.
Yes, and so this belies any logic, obviously, and so first of all, why does anybody think it's acceptable in our society today, when we have the lowest unemployment since World War II, to give people money to be shiftless and lazy? If they have a legitimate medical reason why they cannot work someplace, okay, and look, Walmart employs the handicapped, so I'm not gonna, you have to be beyond indigent, okay? Drug addiction does not count. So why don't they, take them to an area where they can police it and remove all the drugs? I just don't understand this mentality where you take away from everybody else to continue a failed policy and a failed product that is going to net you a negative return. You're not going to get anything positive out of this.
I'm a little bit encouraged because, and I think a lot of us on the side of that is, and we are starting to. I think Trump is one of the main cogs behind this, or one of his philosophies of that. Because a lot of times I think we're talking, or we're not putting this into a framework that those that want to believe, or it's easy to believe that concept of free, and we're not talking to them in the language that they understand or the simple concepts they understand. Well, it's really because it's really understand. It's easy to understand a concept of if somebody says free. Oh, I'm going to give you something. Well, who? I mean, there's probably someone out of 2 or 3 out of the 7 billion people who say, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't want that." Yada 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 yada. But I mean, most people say, "Well, yeah, if you wanted to give me a brand new 2020 Corvette mid-engine, redesign coming out of that. If you want to roll one into my driveway and say, here it is. I mean, most people would say, yeah, thumbs up. We'll go for that. It's an easy concept to sell. But sometimes it is sometimes, and I think we talk a lot, or a lot of us that really study it talk a lot about taxes and numbers and this and that and da 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 da. So, but I don't think we talk a lot about simple concepts like that, to what free really means. And there's one word. The first one I started, and if you notice how I frame that, I start with one word, then the next one is two, and then three, which was kind of a step. But my first word that I've come up with, the first concept is the first word is freedom. What does freedom mean to you, Dwayne?
It means the ability to realize your own self-determination. And that's it in a nutshell. I as a human walking the planet, get to realize my own self-determination, meaning that I get to make a choice to do whatever I wish to do and to realize whatever potential that I want, away from the intrusion, influence, or without effect from an overbearing government, boss, or anybody else, however you want to term it.
The next one I come, and it kind of dovetails into it, but it's free will. What does free will mean to you?
Free will means that you're allowed to make your own decision without any interference. Kind of goes back to I kind of answered it in the first. Free will is just that. You determine what course of action you're going to take for a given situation.
And free from fear.
Well, wouldn't we all like to be there? In this state, because it is a free state that relishes freedom and gives me the ability to protect myself, I fear very little. However, if I was living in your state, where the predatory animals that are allowed to exist in society, and I was not allowed to avail myself of the ability of self-defense, then I would not be free of fear, because any prudent individual is going to fear that which they cannot see or that which they cannot predict. And it may not necessarily be fear, but you would certainly be more cautious as to what you do. So, yeah, to be free of fear is probably the ultimate freedom, because you cannot achieve any of the other freedoms without first having that freedom of and away from fear, to be able to realize your own potential.
And hopefully, not only in California but across the nation, we're turning this tide. Because in 2016, Donald Trump got about, if you want to break it down into ethnicity, or as a common phrase of ethnicity, about 6% of the black vote, about 17% of the Hispanic vote. Right now, the polling I'm seeing is Donald Trump is getting 34% of the black support and about 28% of the Latino support. And I think they are seeing, after 3 years of Donald Trump, they're seeing that they do have freedom, that they do have free will, and they are getting, and they are stripping away that fear, factor of that. And
Well, ask Cliff Cummings of Toyota San Bernardino. Is he selling more cars? Obviously, he must be. He's building a new dealership.
yes,
Well, what is that a result of? That's a result of a booming economy brought on by correct, decisive removal of just onerous regulation and big government in your way. And so people are back to work in a large way. People can now afford to go down and buy a vehicle. What a concept. You've unleashed the potential of people in society, and now they are self-sufficient. This is the thing that the Democrats do not want. They do not want a class of people self-sufficient, capable of critical thinking that will turn on them and never vote for them again. You know, the old adage, you give a person a fish, they eat for a day. You teach them to fish, you know, they eat for life. And this is what's happening. People are awakening to the idea that they no longer have to have their hand out to a government entity that's going to allow them to exist. They can now seek a higher level that's above just existing and waking up every day thinking, how am I going to keep my lights on? How am I going to keep gas in the car to even go to work? You know, wages are coming up, you know, albeit somewhat slowly. I'd like to see that increase a little bit and outpace inflation. But, you know, that there's a whole nother paradigm that's probably an entire show on that. We have to get into some Milton Friedman economics on that.
yeah,
You know, might bore people to tears.
No, but the Milton Friedman economics are great for people like you and me. But and I've said it, and we will play it here sometime here in the upcoming near future. The Phil Donahue Milton Friedman clip on greed.
Yes,
And,
you need to play that.
yes, it's about 2 minutes long. And if you understand the concept of that, because everybody, you know, because of the lexicon, nobody wants to admit or think that they are greedy. But the way Milton Friedman explains it to Phil Donahue's question, for one, it's absolutely brilliant answer, and two, and I think that was in the 70s or 80s. It's a stark contrast in the debate and discussion of all of our politics and the way it was back then versus the way it is now. And that's the secondary part of that. But I want to kind of dovetail back to that now that you kind of mentioned it. And I did the example of who wouldn't accept a brand new Corvette sitting in their driveway free of charge, yada, yada, yada. Now, the odds of that happening are probably less than zero for you to get that. But, and I think as the last 3 years have proven out, if you have the opportunity to go out and get a job at doing something that's going to make you a lot of money or start a business or be successful at it, you are going to have enough money on your pocket that you can maybe order that Corvette, or you can order those brand new 2020 Toyota Supras that are hitting the line off the lot, or maybe a brand new Toyota Tundra pickup with the 4-wheel drive sitting 87 feet off the air. That's what freedom, free will, and free from fear does for you. It allows you to make the choice to do what you want. Nobody's dictating it for you. And that is that should be, if you want a higher quality of life, if you want if you want your kids and grandkids to have a better future than you, or the opportunity to do that, those are the concepts that we should be talking about. Because as Margaret Thatcher said, the great Iron Lady and the late Prime Minister of Great Britain back in the 80s said, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money, and you're going to do it at some point. You may have it free today, but go ask the people of Venezuela right now what that free wound up being.
Well, it most definitely not something that they could have foreseen albeit if they had actually looked and learned from history. This is a repetitive situation, and you know, we're seeing more and more of it in this country, with people lining up on the Bernie Sanders side and the Elizabeth Warren side. And how far left can we go? Can I out left this other ridiculous person? How much further into insanity can we dive until people just, and, we've got an entire generation that doesn't want to work. They don't want to earn anything. What they want to do is they want to sit at home and be given stuff. And what you get out of this is the movie Idiocracy. If you haven't seen it yet, you're supposed to. You get a complete generation of non-functioning idiots that if you don't provide everything for them, they'll just lose it. And so, we've got this dependent class that the socialists created starting actually in the 50s. It was a very small group. It started post-World War II. If you go back actually to the early 50s when they had the House on Un-American Activities investigation that was rooting out some of these people in Hollywood, in some cases not fairly, but in other cases quite fair, actually right on the money. And you see this in the entertainment industry now. These people are all about how can I be as extreme as possible, and how can I outdo the person? I'm so superior and progressive that I am progressing farther left than you are at a faster pace. And that means that is now the new lexicon that defines success, is how fast we can devolve into progressive reality. Because that progressivism, the whole term, means that you are superior because you are progressing. No, you're not. What you're progressing to is your own jail cell. And this is the thing. Remember the old adage, farmer goes out in the middle of the field and he wants to round up a bunch of wild hogs. So he puts down some feed. And the hogs come in and they eat. And one day he puts up one line of fence. And they don't seem to mind. They come off the trough. Then another line of fence, then another, and then he finally puts a gate. And one day the hogs go in and then he just locks the gate. And now they can't go anywhere because they've become dependent on the farmer feeding them. And this is what you've got. You've got an entire leftist cabal. I mean, really, with the economy and the statistics that you just said earlier on, why did the Democrats even show up? You're done. Okay, look at the statistics. You're done. The only people that you're going to carry are the radical nut-wing class of the academics and the socialist ne'er-do-wells. You're not going to carry any of the common people. You're certainly not going to get any of the recently better employed and recently off the unemployment list people. They understand that the orange guy in the White House got him there. So if you've got the level of votes that you're saying that you've got in the minority community and the women's vote, you might as well just go home. What are you going to do? You're going to eke out, 40%, maybe? I mean, you'd be lucky to get that. I don't see it happening. And that's why they're trying to impeach him. I mean, they have run out of ideas. So the only idea that they do have, and I think this was actually a fallback position, they tried to muddy the water intentionally originally. And so when they couldn't go after him because he just outthought him too quickly, what they did is they resorted to the impeachment campaign in an attempt to muddy his presidency and deter people from voting for him because they would get some gotcha. Aha, we found out he's involved in some criminal activity. Well, he wasn't involved in any criminal activity. He was involved in talking with the head of another foreign country, and quite rightly, in my opinion, saying, hey, look, before we give you guys any money, you got to get your house in order because you've got some corruption over there. And we want you to look into it. And that's not a criminal act. And does he benefit from it? Only if the facts bear the case out. If you're the guy on the other end, the Bidens, and nothing happened, you didn't do anything wrong, you should, according to the Democrats, welcome this, right? You should say, oh, absolutely, I look forward to being exonerated of all of this mess. It's all smoke and mirrors. I want to testify. Instead, what you hear is smear campaign, and this is a absolutely wrong, and all the facts are in. How many times have we heard all the facts are in, and that none of this means anything, except unless it applies to Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, success is a hard thing to argue against, but you do have that. And we're going to be joining KMET here in a little bit on that, as we usually do every day at 5:30. Coming in on the AM dial, as we do every Monday or Friday. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, and then we are going to see why I might vote Democrat on that. That's going to be a very interesting segment. I think you're going to enjoy that as we're tuning in on that. And that's the dinging you're hearing as we're hooking up to KMET on the Skype. So we'll be joining them about 30 seconds or so and getting into that part of it. But yeah, it's part of the lexicon on that. And it's, like I've said, it's really hard.
1 minute, guys. 1 minute.
To argue against success. And you brought it up. I mean, that's what I believe the whole impeachment thing is about, is how do you argue against success? Well, you can't do that. So the only way we think we can win is doing we'll try and impeach him. We'll try and throw mud at it or that, because it's really hiding their inadequacies, because they got nothing. They've got nothing other than a false narrative that they are. And you want to talk about the evil people of the world? Those that are selling you a false narrative or packaging something to deceive you into a world that is ultimately going to be maybe your financial devices. We're
phone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The preceding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
I just love that funky music as we're coming on, as we're joining all the folks motoring, listening on the AM radio band on KMET 1490 AM, broadcasting out of Banning, which with our famed engineer, Sean, back at those studios, keeping us out over the airways, and Jesse, our engineer extraordinaire here at the Toyota San Bernardino Recording Studios, keeping us all that coming up on that to give you the show today. Dwayne's in on the Skype. If you want to chime in, the phone number is 951-242-5397. Give us a ring on what we're talking about. Talked a little bit about it, and we ran through this as the 33rd anniversary of the Challenger explosion, where 7 astronauts lost their life. We talked about a little bit about that, how sometimes we're a little bit risk averse, or we're becoming more risk averse in our society, and we're going to do that at our detriment. But then we talked about a lot of how sometimes I don't think, or we haven't in the past, reached out to those who are maybe not seeing things in the light that they should, how things really work. Of that, sometimes you're going to fail at stuff. But you pick yourself back if you want to, if you let that defeat you, then you're not going to gain anything. Just like if we'd have walked away from the space program, you might not have cell phones or video games or a lot of the technology you have to do. A lot of the stuff that they learned in doing that is bringing you the modern conveniences many of us take for granted each and every day on this stuff coming up. So we talked a lot about that in outreach, and we talked a little bit about the impeachment. But there's a saying in the Latino community, and I might be butchering this because my Spanish is not that great, but it's "si se puede," which means yes, we can. And that's really big in the Latino culture on that, and it kind of dovetails in that. And I think they are seeing that today in the last 3 years of the Donald Trump administration. I think why the Latino support and the black support is becoming up as we some of the recent polling I've seen is they're up to like 34% black support for Trump and 28 Latino when they were in the single or low teens in the election 3 years ago. And they're kind of enjoying this. Yeah, they're seeing the concepts of what free really means, what free will and free from fear does for you. It gives you the opportunity to make you determine how you can live your lives best to that and how to provide a better future, probably even more important, for your kids, grandkids, and future generations so they enjoy, like we have enjoyed, the spoils of living in the good old US of A for everyone who's been on here listening and listen to that and do that. I mean, I've seen a tremendous amount of change of things and mostly for the better of doing that, or things that have just made life much easier compared to what they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I hope that continues in the future. And I don't want to be the generation when they look back or have the questions asked about me or be analyzed in the history books as the generation or the time period I was living in as when this all went to hell in a handbasket. And it will if you believe a lot of the things that are going on, like the concept of free and like we're talking about that on top of that. But what do you think of that, Dwayne?
Well, certainly we don't want to be remembered as the the good old days generation, right? That's we oftentimes refer to past generations as the good old days for various reasons. Every generation has its time in the sun, and so I think moving forward, what we need to do is focus more on independence, self-reliance. You need to get some people voting differently, most certainly, especially in California. I did hear something. I heard an interview with a lady. I caught the tail end of it, who is actually challenging Nancy Pelosi in her own district. And much to my dismay, what she claims is that she's getting zero support from the mainstream Republican Party and the rhinos because she doesn't fall lockstep into what they want. And we saw this in the last election, for governor. I mean, and that's why you got the governor you got. I mean, there was clearly a better candidate that didn't make it for a variety of reasons. One was that I think Trump got it, supported the wrong guy. And it was tacit support. He didn't come out there and really stump for him. So I think, you're going to see a turnaround. I certainly hope, in California's case, it's probably going to have to crash harder before it rebuilds itself.
That's possible. And I think the Democrats left have put this scare tactic, and I think they've used it as a great tool of coming at. And they've framed it in this way in a lot. And I was talking to somebody recently about this, and he said this is how they really convinced, or one of the main reasons that they convinced the Latino community to go lockstep, or especially like in California, a lot of places to go center-left Democratic. They said whenever, let's take Trump, for example, whenever he's talking about illegal immigration, they frame that as they're coming after your family. And that's what they hear. But what I'm trying to explain, I think what you're stamping and what probably how we need to frame that is, no, we're not coming after your family. We're trying to give your family the opportunity to be what you want it to be and to live the life you want. You came from another place that was suppressing you. You came here, and we want to give you that opportunity to succeed. And you're going to have the best attempt. You're going to have the best shot at doing it here as it's proven now. And if you really are for your family, you will embrace the concepts like we're talking about of free will and free from fear. Because as the saying, yes, we can, yes, you can. And if you pull from that, if you pull from the concept or hearing that concept of we're going to take it from somebody else and give it to you, and you finally come to realize that, well, no, that's not going to work. That failed before where we were at. What's it going to happen like when it gets here, or if we bring it to here? But if now that they are experiencing the loosening of the chains of that being on the plantation, as Mason Weaver says, and they can actually go out and buy or provide for their families a great education, a fine home, good transportation to do that, vacations and everything else. They're starting to say, this is looking pretty good. We don't have to ask anybody. We get to do what we determine is best for us. And I think that's the concept of what we're talking about, of, yes, we can, or si se puede, as they say it in Spanish. And that is the thing I think we need to resonate a lot, or I think that's a way to reach those that, may have been sold a bill of goods and are now seeing it, and expand that so we can all be better off.
Well, I agree. So, your options are you either fall lockstep into what they've told you, or, you have the ability to see around you and say, wait a second, there's another option here. And this option works. The other one's been a failed option for decades. So why is it that you have the leftists that are constantly badgering people saying, oh, if you don't vote this way, bad things will happen. These people are coming for you. They're coming for your family. They're going to take away your stuff that we've been providing for you for free. They're going to take all the free stuff away from you and make you work, because that's their biggest fear is, or their biggest, I should say, that's their biggest tool is fear mongering. So what they do is they instill fear among people, and there's no better motivator. You're talking a basic instinct. We have a fight or flight response built into our DNA that is part of that. And look, I don't care who you are. You threaten somebody's family or any individual, that person is obviously going to react. And in the case that you're citing, where you have an entire populace, an entire voting block of individuals that are fear motivated and have bought into the outright lies, because you only have a couple of independent news sources that say anything different. So why is it that people won't spend the time? They're constantly glued to their cell phones anyway. Why they won't spend some time to actually look up some of the things these people are saying and check them out, instead of just lockstep going, oh, yes, that's right. Yes, the orange man in the White House is going to come after all of us, and he needs to be impeached because he's a bad guy, and we say so. Okay, based on what? You do realize in this country, all of us have the right to be assumed innocent until proven guilty. So why is it that we are marching lockstep to convict an individual that is a president in this country without due process?
So we're going to play this little music video, and why I might vote Democrat. This is by Matt Kill. It's on Facebook. He's put it out. I think you'll enjoy it. I'd like to hear everybody's concept of that. So go ahead and play this little cute little number that Matt Kill come out as why I might vote Democrat.
So forgive me if I stumble over this. This is the first time I've ever played this in public. So I may forget a word, but you guys never heard it, so you won't know. This is called Maybe I'll Vote Democrat Again. Just wait. When they throw B. Husseino in Guantanamo, slam the door, lock it. When Bernie Sanders finally takes a dime from his own pocket. When AOC can speak, and her IQ sounds more than 10. Maybe I'll vote Democrat again. They got this freak show they call Beto who pretends he's Mexican. When the poll gets close, I bet Mayor Pete will take it on the chin. When someone tells Kamala Harris that she can't sleep her way in. When I see Liz Warren's teepee, I'll vote Democrat again. When Candace Owens hosts The View instead of those four hags whose lovely personalities could make a buzzard gag. When you turn on your TV and there's real news on CNN, maybe I'll vote Democrat again. If JFK was here today, he'd scream and shake his fist that his beloved party's been hijacked by socialists. Take away our guns is number one in their bag of dirty tricks. But if they try it, we're gonna party like it's 1776.
Yes,
when they
can.
can talk the cattle into holding their farts in. That's when I'll vote Democrat again.
Yeah. Si se puede.
When Slick Willie finally fesses up to all his misadventures, when Pelosi gives a speech, she's not lying through her dentures. When creepy old Joe Biden stops sniffing little girls' skin, maybe I'll vote Democrat again. Chucky Schumer is a tumor on the colon of our nation. He knows that they can't win without illegal immigration. They got delusion by collusion, all because they didn't win. Now Sharpton pays his taxes, I'll vote Democrat again. If JFK was here today, he'd scream and shake his fist. His beloved party's been hijacked by communists. Take away our guns is number one in their bag of dirty tricks. But if they try it, we're gonna party like it's 1776. They all scream impeachment just to cover their rear ends. And when they all hang for treason, I'll vote Democrat again. When they campaign on killing babies, well then what else can I say? But this looks like the perfect time to walk away. So when the Jews and the Arabs call a truce, when Caitlin's back to being Bruce, when the Clintons finally get the news, maybe I'll vote Democrat again. So you can take your Green New Deal and blow it out of Cal's rear end. 'Cause I ain't ever voting Democrat again. I'm Brian Lewis, and I approve that message too. Thank you guys.
There you go. That was it was a cute little song and great. I wish I could write something like that, but I don't know if you could hear that, Dwayne. I think you're having a little trouble. Oh, you finally got to it?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't
awesome.
that kind of sum up what we were talking about? And that's why I kind of set up the way we were doing it. But I mean, Matt Kill's song there basically set up the whole thing that we're talking about. JFK would be turning over in his grave that the socialists and communists hijacked his Democratic Party. The man that took 90% tax rate and lowered it and started an economic boom back in 1961, folks.
Well, you know what you say. People that do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Edwin
And
Burke.
we seem to be ignoring a great part in our historic, events of our society and this experiment in freedom that we call a republic. And we need to talk about this. I keep hearing this term democracy thrown around. Democracy is a function of freedom of thought and freedom of expression. A republic is what we have and is the form of government that we all enjoy. It is not a democracy. A democracy is two wolves and a sheep arguing over what's for dinner. We have a republic, and the difference is a representative government. Even though our representatives mostly are shills for themselves and the big companies that still run things. The deep state is long and wide, and this president's just doing what he can to try to survive and to right things. But they've had 75, 80 years to get it right. One guy in 8 years isn't going to be able to do everything, but boy, he sure has put a hole in one of their socks anyway.
Yeah. And and again, I don't know that we don't talk a lot or that, but I want to reach out because I talk to a lot of groups all across a lot of spectrums, everywhere from the far right to far left to the freedom loving guys and gals that are out there doing that, and they're all that. But I'd like to put this message out like that. It's listen to the message of freedom. Listen to the message of you taking responsibility for yourself. Just like Jack Wilson and the congregation did in Texas that were armed and took out that evil in 4.3 seconds and probably saved a lot of lives in that case. And that came out of the Texas law of 2017 where 30 or 40 got slaughtered in a church. It's unfortunate 2 lost their lives in 2019, but we didn't repeat the mistake of having 30 or 40. That's because Texas changed the law that it made it almost mandatory, or at least gave you the ability, the freedom to defend yourself in a church.
Well, and here's the thing. The government doesn't allow me my freedoms. I allow my freedoms.
Yes.
The government's got no damn business telling me what I can do when it comes to my basic rights as a human being. That's what the whole Declaration of Independence is about. Okay? The Second Amendment does not need to be codified, explained, or reevaluated. It is one thing and one thing only. I get to carry a gun, period. You don't like it? Tough. Because you know what? My gun permits the Second Amendment. You don't get to issue me my rights. You don't get to bar me my rights. This is probably one of the basic reasons why I moved to a free state. Is because the state of California is so labored down by morons that think that they and they alone are the arbiters of what should be and what rights you're allowed to have. You know what? I was sick of it many, many decades ago.
I want to touch on that because I know in the left, I think it put a lot of fear into a big part of the population. Like you said, those guys like Jack Wilson are coming after your family. Jack Wilson is defending your family. And the point of the Second Amendment, like I've said many times, is not about hunting or anything else. It's to protect you and your family, and maybe sometimes even more importantly, to protect you from a tyrannical government, to protect you from somebody taking away your freedom, your free will. And if you have that, that will maybe not eliminate, but give you the confidence, and you will not have that fear of losing that freedom, because you will be able to protect yourself. Just like that congregation was able to protect itself against evil. They couldn't stop it, but when it was in their presence and when it was presented to them, they had the proper policies and tools to take care of the situation and minimize the damage. And that's what we should be, I think, that's what should be resonating. That's what we should be concentrating on, not having that argument, because the example I bring up a lot is just go right down 90 miles south of here to the border of Mexico, where it is very difficult, if not impossible, to own a firearm, and 98.7% of the people are living in abject poverty and fear because of the 1.3% that have the guns, the government, and the cartels, and whoever's running things. And that's what happens when you concentrate that power of that and you secede your free will to somebody else.
No, I agree. Mexico's got a whole host of problems, but It is the arbiter of things to come if the left gets its way. If you people think that and I'm talking to everybody, not just the right-wing gun population here, but everybody listening. If you people on the left think that you're going to come take all of our guns and that's going to make you feel better and safer, I got a hot news flash for you. You're going to be far more in danger than you realize, because it's the very fact of the matter that the rest of us get to keep a gun that keeps you and yours safe, even at your own peril, because you choose not to avail yourself of that right. Again, that is your choice, but I will not have that choice forced upon me or anybody that I know by the government. And that is the basic fundamental reason why you have a Second Amendment, is to keep the government from coming in and enslaving the population. Because right now, we are citizens, not subjects. And the difference is our ability to own self-protection in the form of a firearm. Okay? It's as you said, it is to fight off a tyrannical government. It has not a damn thing to do with hunting, target shooting, or any other BS they would like to pretend. We are here in this great experiment of liberty because we had some extremely wise men sit down and word a document that for 200 plus years they've been attempting to attack and has stood the test of time. And what we have is a republic still. We're citizens, not subjects. Look at Great Britain. Oh, we're going to ban all the firearms. Now they're talking about going after knives, because what happens when you took all the firearms away? Well, you got an entire radicalized Muslim population that's using knives to attack people. The most recent was on a bridge, and what did they do? Cops with guns shot the guy finally and took him out of action.
And that situation is turning around. You know, they're pulling out. They reelected somebody that's
a conservative.
Yeah, back to more of the freedom of stuff and that. And we're getting out of the European Union. This little experiment that they had over there, and we talked about it yesterday about the misinformation, led none other by Barack Obama for 8 years on this whole situation. The lies and stuff they were telling you, and the statistics prove it out. And they want to control you. And I would hope that the message, and this is one of my goals in 2020, is to resonate that message and get the most people in the vast majority to agree on that common ground. This is the concept that's going to give you freedom. This is what allows you to be what you can want and live the life you want, not what somebody dictates. And when you hear the words free, that's the concepts we should be talking about. But the road to serfdom and ultimate destruction is thinking somebody's going to give you something and for nothing, and it's not all going to collapse at some point, because we all know that doesn't work. Thanks a lot, Dwayne, for being on this hour. And that.
You got it.
We'll be back tomorrow on Wicked Wednesday on that. Starting at 5 o'clock on IE Newswire Live on YouTube and Facebook, and then as we roll into a KMET 1490 AM like we're doing now, we did this half hour to talk about the news and views and everything that's going on all across not only the Inland Empire where we're broadcasting, but all across the world as we do on the net every day. So it's mandatory you be back here in 23 hours to do this all over again. Had a great time today. We will see you back on Wicked Wednesday tomorrow. See ya.